Today I'm going over the March 2021 Cavalier difficulty update. The nodes are being buffed in the benefit of the player, as well as the reward saw a huge buff. I just wanted to drop some commentary on that, give my thoughts. You might have already seen the nodes, so I'll kind of brush over that. The more important thing I want to get through is kind of what I would have done, because I see a lot of really great stuff here, but just some of it I feel like isn't hitting the main pain point that I think needed to be affected. So the first node that's being adjusted is for science. The weak in the knees, the potency of the weakness is dropping from 50 to 30%, and the contagion, the chance that you gain a poison debuff, is going from 20 to 30%. Now, I think the logic here is, one, they want to punish you less if you aren't properly debuffing the opponent, so you don't have to worry about the weakness. And I get this. This is nice. This will mean that you don't have to play around that weakness as much. You can just deal with the poison debuff. But for me, it really wasn't that big of an issue. The biggest one was if they decide to drop stun immunes, so that has the potential frustration. But overall, the weakness really wasn't that big of a deal. I thought that was very, very reasonable, given that pretty much every science champion has access to the debuff, and at the very least has access to the stun debuff with parry light, medium light medium, which isn't the world's greatest damage opening, but does suffice. My issue with the science node actually has to do more with the interaction with the poison. I felt like if they're going to consistently place poisons on you, they should make you 100% or like 90% reduction from poison, because anything less than that means that if you're like not running willpower, that you do minorly are annoyed by the poison node. Additionally, it interacted very poorly with some champions, like for example Captain America Infinity War in the skill, where shrugging it with the skill synergy didn't get you the Fury, and I thought that was really poor. And then finally, my bigger issue isn't the percentage chance you had to gain the poisons, which was very low, causing you to have to gain Furies like very slowly. My issue was that it was just too many Furies. I'm a big fan of big potency Furies and less of them, and I think that was the way to go. I don't feel like we needed to be triggering the poison more often, because as I said, that's not too big of a deal. The issue is that when you were triggering the poison and getting those Furies, each individual Fury didn't feel satisfying. Additionally, if you're not properly mitigating the poison damage over time, it is a lot of chip damage if you're not running willpower, for example. And for that kind of a situation, I actually kind of liked that it was a low chance to proc, because one poison isn't that big of a deal. So that's kind of my biggest issue with the science. I'll move on to tech. So for tech, the nanite healing, they changed the healing from 10% of max health to 7%. This is nice. It's cute. It does mean that if you're trying to blast your way through, you're not as negatively impacted. But honestly, I think the tech chapter was perfectly fine. And honestly, a 3% change here isn't the biggest of difference. So just, that's fine. The tech chapter was okay as is. For skill, this is the biggest changes, which is great because by far was the worst class nodes we saw. So they changed the challenge from can't touch this, which is just like a 50% evade chance, to mixed master, which means that the defender will evade if you use the same basic attack twice in a row. Means that you can properly play around it. Now they also made it so that ability accuracy reduction preventing evade will work now. They're saying this was a technical issue, which I totally believe, but that's it. That's all they do to skill. And so from a first point, I want to say I think that Mixmaster is way better than Can't Touch This for opening the amount of roster options for skill. I think that's very, very good. There were a lot of options that were frustrating, or a lot of matchups, even when you had the right answer, it was just kind of a pain in the neck because, if you lost your response to the evade for a second, they were immediately evading nonstop, and there was no real counterplay because it is tough to keep up anti-evade with, some champions, say for like Elsa or Killmonger, if you're not able to punish a special. Like, there are many instances where you would like an alternative way to deal with the fight, but this also means that other champions with a shorter window will be able to accurately force the evade and predict it, and then actually gain those buffs in rapid succession, which is really, really nice. For me, I think the biggest issue I have here is that Mixmaster might have like a weird interaction where it won't cause as many Furies to generate unless, you know, in as rapid a succession. With Can't Touch This, if you had, say, True Strike, you could get 5 Furies off of a single combo. With Mixmaster, you're looking at like a max of 3, typically speaking. So I would have liked to see the numbers of Furies dropped from, I think it's 10 at the moment, down to like 7, just to like minorly adjust for this. This is not too big of a deal, but it is just like a small point I wanted to make, that we will be picking up those Furies in a longer or larger quantity of full combo rotations, and some champions deal with evade using their mediums, so for them it's even worse. So I would have liked just to see less Furies, higher potency. Again, that's my biggest thing, is more potent Furies, each one feeling stronger, which brings me to Mutant, where they reduce the max Furies from 10 to 5 and increase the potency from 35 to 75%, or 35 to 70%. This is awesome. Definitely a huge thing. I noticed that Mutants don't pick up the Furies super fast, so that was really nice. But a bigger pain point here on the Mutant is, my issue with the Mutant one is not so much the Fury potency, which was actually weirdly totally fine. It is the regeneration that you get when you proc the regeneration. It's so insubstantial that it actually feels really bad to use. And I understand that I'm like an exception in the community. I'm running attrition, so I have to worry about recoil. But for me, constantly having to use my specials, and especially use Mutants who are multi-hit specials, which there's not as many who are attrition friendly as you would think, I found myself getting a little frustrated with this node and just actively not playing with it. And I would have liked to see the regeneration bumped up to like 5% over time, so you could still die to recoil to suffer that punishment, but or even like 4.5%, just to mitigate it a little bit better. But the lack of mitigation from that regeneration is really, really poor. And honestly, even when you're not worrying about recoil, it's so low of a regeneration that it's almost like not relevant. So I would have liked to see that boost up to like a more reasonable standpoint. So that's my thoughts on the nodes. Nothing crazy. Overall, these are all great changes. I think they're all going to be beneficial. I just think just a little bit more, and across the board, the Fury change. I think this Mutant change for the Furies should be persistent across the board. They should all be faster. As far as rewards, we see amazing changes. So we have plus 11,000 tier 5 basic, plus 1 1/3 tier 2 alpha, which brings us up to the point where we were before they dropped Cavalier event. Crazy. Back when they had the higher scaled rewards, they dropped Cavalier event, and we actually took a step back on tier 2 alpha, which I'm sure many players have noticed. So this puts us in a good place for tier 2 alpha. I'm really happy about that. A substantial gold add, as well as changing the tier 5 CC fragment crystal to a Nexus crystal, as well as 2,500 6-star shards. So the major things here is, 1, this puts us up to 7,500 6-star shards, which is a good amount. That is like the bare minimum number of 6-star shards I believe I've stated in the past that I found acceptable. So I would still like to see this boosted, especially as, like, I asked for this like 4 months ago thinking that was the bare minimum. It gets even worse as time goes on. So I would like to see this pumped up to like 10,000, or maybe even put like 2,500 in the 4-star challenge or the Cavalier challenge. Like if you want to restrict it to being something that's earned, totally fine. Add 6-star shards to the challenge, really juice up that reward, make people feel like they have to earn it. Absolutely fine. But I do believe that for the Cavalier monthly, we should be seeing a full 6-star at this point. It is about time we start seeing that. The tier 5 basic, tier 2 alpha, those are fine. But this selector change into from a regular RNG crystal to a Nexus crystal, this is literally everything I could want. I stand by, I've been asking either for double the quantity or a form of selection crystal, and this works just fine. I do think in the next 4 to 5 months, I would like to see an additional amount of tier 5 CC. Now, I think that because they have this 10% as a Nexus crystal, it would be totally reasonable to do like 10% as a Nexus crystal and 5% RNG, and have the additional be RNG. There's nothing wrong with having a degree of RNG in the tier 5 CC, but just getting 10% Nexus, 10% better RNG on a consistent basis would work better. But I still stand by, and this is the statement I repeatedly make, I would rather see a higher quantity of 2%. 2% summing up to a total of 20%, because actually better than the Nexus crystal is just more crystals. More smaller quantity crystals. The smaller the quantity percentage of the crystal adding up to the same total, the better your curve is as far as RNG pulls, and that's what I would like to see. We know 2% crystals exist in the game. I would have preferred to see 16% crystals in the form of 2%ers here. It is strictly better than the Nexus in my opinion, but this is a really good way to kind of set a pacing to the speed at which players are having large rosters of R3s. It will really help players push to their first R3 or maybe their first handful of R3s, but as players push into the 15 to 20 to 30 rank 3 6-stars, this will maintain that relative pacing that Kabam has set. So I think that's fine as well. That is my thoughts on the March 2021 Cavalier monthly event. Let me know what you think. As always, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.